Iceland, unplanned. We'd just finished hiking across Iceland from north to south and had no idea what to do next. So we stuck our thumbs out and hoped for the best, and that's where our adventure began. We hitched rides with amazing people, spending days with them too. We rode horses, jumped into boats and hot pots too, and even got a surprise show of the Northern Lights. If you like the sound of all that, you've clicked on the right video, and if you could help me out by subscribing as well, that'd be great. After finishing our hike at Dirahole, we ditched the idea of renting a car and tried hitchhiking instead. It turned out to be the best decision ever. On day one, we saw incredible sights and ended up at a barbecue with international workers. They gave us a cosy place to sleep, and the next day, we hitched a ride to the Glacial Lagoon and Diamond Beach with one of them, who happened to work at an Arctic char farm and hooked us up with fish for dinner. We took a break on the way there and they had even packed lunch for us. They were incredibly sweet. We then pulled up at Iceland's ultimate ice cube playground. Here, giant icebergs, freshly broken off from the glacier, drift around leisurely. It is stunning. Just on the other side of the lagoon, you can find yourself at Diamond Beach, which is where smaller chunks of ice, polished by the sea, rest on the beach and shine like jewellery. The same guys we hitched with were then going to Hoffen, so we jumped in with them, grabbed an ice cream in the town, and went and tried to hitchhike further. We waited here for quite a while, and eventually a local Icelandic man who was travelling the country on his own picked us up. He was pretty quirky and had some amazing stories about Icelandic tradition. He took us some 200 kilometres to Stutha, or however you pronounce it, up the coast, and we camped out. He told us what time he'd be leaving the next day, and if we wanted to join him, we were more than welcome. We got up nice and early because we didn't want to miss the free lift. We also knew that he was heading to Studlagill and Studlafoss, which were amazing basalt columns and canyons that we wanted to go and explore anyway. Having a ride there was perfect. From the car park, it was just a 2-kilometre walk. We then got back in the car with the same guy and made our way to Mývatn, where he had a hotel booked. Luckily, the weather was a lot better than when we had crossed hiking, so we just camped out nearby. The man from the day before was spending a few days in Mývatn, so we had to go and hitchhike trying to find a lift with someone else. We stood on the side of the road for 5 hours before eventually getting a lift from some Russian Germans at 3 o'clock. They took us to Gullfoss waterfall, which was another place we wanted to go, and we saw a kayaker drop the falls, which was pretty cool. From the waterfall, we got a lift with 2 lovely Swiss ladies. They only took us 6k before we then had to hitch with someone else. Turned out to be the kayaker that we had just seen drop the falls. They were locals and told us about this really nice hot pot. Not a bad place for a hot springs hot tub. We sat there for hours watching the sun set, taking regular dips into the freezing cold river next door. Eventually, we were joined by some Germans that we ended up making friends with, and they took us to the campsite they were heading for. We joined them for their adventure the next day as well. After we'd made a few touristy stops looking at the waterfalls, we drove quite a long way up to the West Fjords. Parking up at the campsite, I made friends with another German who was very excited to show me around his Land Rover conversion. It was pretty epic. We got up and away nice and early with beautiful weather, and we made it as far north as you can drive. Then we walked up and onto a glacier. It was pretty cool. Walking along this moraine and through this textbook U-shaped valley was epic. It's as if every stone holds the story of a glacier's slow, powerful retreat, reminding you of nature's immense power and the quiet beauty of landscapes shaped over millennia. The rivers, fed by the melting ice higher up the valley, carve canyons through volcanic rock, creating striking waterfalls. We had a beautiful spot for lunch. Stephen then took us as far as he was going, and he was pulling off a different way. We got in a car with some Italians who took us all the way to East Fjords. Whilst we were there, we treated ourselves to ice cream and restocked our food supplies at Netto. We then walked to a close-by campsite where we met the Germans again. The next day we got up early and put ourselves in a good position to hitchhike. A battered 4x4 slowly came into view. Behind the wheel was Simander, a local Icelandic man. We soon discovered Simander's passion: horses. Without hesitation, we asked if we could ride them. A sly grin spread across his face and he agreed for half the usual price. The deal was struck and soon we arrived at his home, a place straight out of a Nordic saga. Simander welcomed us like old friends. Starting with a full tour of his property, his barn was complete with a stage and his guitar. To our amazement, he strummed a few songs for us. This wasn't just a man with horses, this was a man who lived with fire in his soul. After he had finished giving us a grand tour, I asked him what he was doing for the rest of the day. He said he was going to go fishing, so I asked if we could join him. We went to go and fix an engine before we could get out on the boat. Once we had got the engine working, we attached it to the boat and took the boat down to the water, ready to go fishing. This adventure was far more than we had bargained for when we put our thumbs out this morning. We didn't think we'd be casting off a boat in the middle of an Icelandic fjord catching our dinner. And as if the day couldn't get any better, he then took us for a sunset ride on the horses. Simander then invited his family over to eat with us. We shared some stories in the hot tub and then he gave us a bed for the night. The next morning he dropped us off somewhere good for us to hitchhike from. He didn't charge us a penny and he sent us off with about a kilo of hard fiska, which is dried fish. A nice healthy snack for our journey ahead. Simander was a true testament to the Icelandic people and just how incredible they can be.
We managed to get 2 hitchhikes far quicker than we thought we would, which meant we had loads of time to take ourselves for a nice afternoon walk, followed by an evening in the local hot pots, socialising with some of the people that lived nearby, sharing stories as we watched the sun go down for the day. The next morning we got up nice and early, standing on the junction hoping to get out to the most western point, and as luck would have it, our German friend Stephen drove past and was our chauffeur for the day. Epic. He took us all the way out to Latrabag, where we went for a scenic walk along the cliffs. Unfortunately, we were too late in the year to see any of the puffins, but it was still incredibly dramatic. We then got back in the banana wagon and he took us to Roadside, the red sand beaches. We relaxed here for a long time, and as we left we probably thought Stephen had had enough of us, so we made our own way, cooking food at the side of the road while we waited for a lift. We eventually got one to a place called Hellalaug, where we found an amazing little hot pot as well. Sitting there sharing stories with some locals when the northern lights showed face. We got up nice and early and stood on a rather busy junction near Hellalaug. It wasn't long before we managed to get a hitch some 300 kilometres with a couple of guys that were updating a travel book for a French company. It was super relaxed and we made a couple of interesting stops along the way. They got us just south of Stikkishólmur on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. When we got picked up by a Chinese girl, she took us to Kirkjufell, which translates to Church Mountain. However, it's referred to as Arrowhead Mountain thanks to Game of Thrones. We got some groceries, and by that I mean a tub of ice cream, walked around the mountain before hitchhiking all the way down to the south side of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula and camped out on a beautiful black pebbled beach, cooking up a huge pot of pasta. We'd moved early from the site and walked back up to the main road, and the women in the camper van we saw early in the trip stopped. They gave us chocolate and beer, but they were going the opposite way. We were en route quickly though. We made a short walk from Helnar to Arnastapi, which was beautiful, then had some lunch. 2 minutes after we started hitchhiking, the Chinese girl Michelle from yesterday pulled up. She gave us a lift all the way down to our Kranas, which is just short of Reykjavik, stopping on the way at a tiny little hot pot that we could only just fit ourselves in if we were standing up. She also told us about how she had hit a sheep the day before and had to ring the insurance company to change her car, so asked if we had realised that the colour of her car was different. We found a beautiful little camp spot overlooking the North Atlantic Ocean. We woke up to a foggy morning for the first time in a week. Everything was wet, but we managed to hitch with just the second car that came past, taking us all the way into Reykjavik, where we checked out hotels. We ended up back at Aurora and noticed a lot of change with coronavirus. It got worse again. We took a walk, visited the Perlan thermal beach, and got some unlimited lamb soup. We left feeling very full and relaxed. Hitchhiking close to the airport, we bumped into this amazing couple that had been married for 55 years. He took her out on date weekends every weekend, and we were lucky enough to join them for one of them. We told them that we had no itinerary, so they just took us along with them and dropped us off as close to the airport as they could. We found some shelter and they gave us some snacks too. Admittedly, the shelter we found wasn't that legitimate. With an early morning flight the next day, this marked the end of our adventure. This was our map of everything we had done, with a line across the middle signifying the walk we did, every X marking a night that we stopped off, and the line around the outside the route that we hitchhiked. Always embrace adventure, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and keep tuned for the next videos. Thanks for watching.